Hey, what's up? Dave with Brazos Valley Strength. And today's video, I'm going to be giving a bit of a rundown, a recap of my last week of this block for my first block post Raw Nationals. And if you followed my stuff heading into Raw Nationals, you know that meet obviously went really well and my training went really well, and I'm pretty much doing as best as I could hope really at this pace heading into the 105 weight class. And this block really picked up right where that one left off. I really don't always expect my training after competitions to be all that good, and especially not as good as what this block turned out to be, but it ended up with PRs on all three lifts, squat, bench, and deadlift. So I'll break all that down. I'm gonna be coming and going throughout the video. I'm not gonna be talking the whole time, but giving some thoughts, giving some highlights throughout the training this week. And to start things off with, here on day one, this is a day that I have had trouble always finding what I really want to do with my squats. I think one of the big things that I found is that just exposure to low bar squatting in general, almost regardless of intensity, seems to be something that really makes my squat progress very, very well. I have a bit of a unique squat style, and sometimes doing high bar, or I'm doing safety bar this week, doesn't cleanly transfer all that well. Even if I get stronger on some of those exercises, I don't always feel like my technique is totally dialed in on low bar. So one of the things that I've started doing here is just essentially warming up to a single set low bar. And with this one, it's just a triple, kind of a really easy triple on low bar squats. And I actually never even progressed this block. I think the first week I did 240, this is 250. And then for every week after that, so essentially it was like 5 weeks in a row, I just did 250 for this triple right here, and clearly it's very easy. But just that little bit of exposure to low bar squatting, even without it being really all that difficult, I feel much more refined, much more dialed in heading into the end of the week. And so that was something I know I've found out in previous blocks, and just probably at times done too much work in that spot. And so I'm kind of leaning into that concept right there of just practicing with that one set and then feeling prepared in the other days. So here with the safety bar squats, this is one that I'm going to be pushing this block, and actually this coming block, I'm going to keep them around. I had a weird experience with the safety bar. This block, I pulled a muscle on my first week, and so there were like 2 weeks that I didn't really get to do it, and so kind of getting back into the groove with the safety bar. But yeah, I mean, even that's going to be a bit of the story. This block overall was that there was some bumps and bruises, and still ended up with some really good stuff. So the safety bar is one of those thoughts, but really the goal here is kind of upper back, mid back strength that really challenges my position. I kind of like to sit back a little bit more in my squat, and I get a lot out of the low bar position. So this really challenges me to fight for extension, and even with my squat, I do benefit a lot when I do a better job of bracing and keeping my hips underneath me, and the safety bar does reward that, but it's really extremely challenging to get it done. My bench press on this day was something that again, I'm actually working on some new stuff with my bench pressing 5 times a week, and the idea there was actually to do less bench pressing per day and feel a little bit more fresh, and emphasize trying to be a bit more specific on my bench press, and not hammer away just with a bunch of mindless volume, but do a bit more directed work and try to feel a little bit better on every single day. And I think I accomplished that. So this was just some light 5s. The goal was like a 5 at a RPE 7, just ascending sets. And it turned out my second set was pretty close to that, so repeated. But again, I think the big point of this day is that you don't have to be training super hard all the time. And even like I said with my squats, I didn't even progress on that one squat set, but I still feel like it was something that really benefited my squat overall. And I think that's a big point, is to find out, or to really have a goal for what each session is, what each variation is trying to do, and what's the purpose of that. So in this case, the bench press was some nice repetitions, kind of setting me up in a good flow for the week. The squat was kind of the same thing, was just getting a good rhythm. And so this day was a bit more of my accessory day, or kind of secondary day, for both squats and bench press, and then harder belt squats, which I'll come back to. day 2 benching is one of what I would say is 2 primary bench days for me. So at this point, I have day 2 and day 4 are my heaviest bench press days. And really, all that really means is I have 2 singles on both those days that I'm expecting to perform pretty well. So some of my decision making around that is just, some of the other days, some of the lighter days, I'm pulling back a little bit more. But on this day, I'm pushing a little bit harder. And actually, as the block went on, I sort of leaned into the idea that I should be pushing my singles harder than maybe what I have in the past. And that's not, uniformly across everything that I'm doing on bench press. This week will end up being pretty hard with some of the rep work that I'm doing. But overall, the concept is not that all my bench pressing should be hard. But since I'm reducing some of the overall volume, I'm going to be going after a little bit more intensity, and that's going to be reflected in my next block. So if you're looking at the block itself that I wrote, you'll see a lot of RP8s. And I ended up going beyond that. It was more 9.5 a lot of times. I'm going to be doing that again in my next block. But the overall success of this one, it turned out to be very, very good. Is this week I benched 190 on this day, 195, which matches my PR on day 4. But so 190 here. And these reps that I've done, I guess I've bench pressed 190 or above something like 6 times during this block, and I actually only benched 190 one time heading into Raw Nationals. And that's not necessarily to say that I couldn't have. I may have been able to bench press 190 or more frequently heading into Raw Nationals, but I was a bit more conservative. But there were certainly days that I didn't feel like I could. But one of the things that certainly stood out is that my rep work was vastly overperforming during this block compared to my singles. And sometimes just tracking like estimated maxes, the single may be like a 9, and then that 170 I just did was maybe a 7.5, 8 RPE. Some of these get a little bit harder, but these reps I'm doing sets of 4 with 170 here, and I do some triples with 180 at the end of the week, and none of these were rep ranges that I was handling with this much ease heading into Raw Nationals. So regardless of what the top end strength was, all of my rep work is significantly better. So even though I didn't hit big PRs on my singles, I still feel much stronger with my bench press overall. So I put these in here not only to show that I'm still trying to maintain some hypertrophy and physique oriented goals, but I wanted to show some of the back accessories and the way that I'm executing my back accessories when I'm just in normal training, and I would say even heading into competition, whatever. Same concept is that you'll see that everything that I'm doing here is rhythmic and controlled and really about feeling the muscle, and I'm treating it like a bodybuilder right now. And I think that's a mistake a lot of times people have when they're heading into their back accessories or accessories in general. We're trying to train muscles here. We're not trying to just see how much weight we can move. So be controlled, feel the muscles, be a bodybuilder during these times, and it'll certainly pay off a whole lot better. So now we're heading into the kind of PR range. The back half of the week is where I put more of my heavy work. I kind of say day 4 is my best bench press day most of the time, but day 3 is my heaviest deadlift day, and day 5 is my heaviest squat day. And I went into this week feeling very, very good with where my training was at, and did a little bit of number hunting. But anyway, the deadlifts were an interesting, experiment a little bit this block. Like I said, I pulled a muscle in my back the first week, so I almost had like 2 wasted weeks of training. And then at the very end of my second week, I had something happen with my SI joint, and that ended up being another week and a half or so. So, I ended up with this block, including this session, only with maybe 2 really productive days of deadlifting. And so I ended up pulling a really big PR here, but I don't think that this is something that I can really give this block credit for. I didn't get stronger deadlifting this block, but I just am pulling really well. My technique is really good at the moment, and I think a lot of what we see is just my overall strength from last block, maintaining. I was able to train my legs well this block, do belt squats, all those kind of things. And my deadlift strength at the moment is just so much higher than it really ever has been in the past. And that's something that is cool to see. Even though I hit a big PR here, I don't feel like, wow, I made deadlift progress this block. I feel like, okay, my deadlift held on, and I ended up pulling really well. So another thing that I'm doing now, and I'm going to continue to do, is I'm leaning into using more straps. So here is the last warm up that I do without straps. A little bit sloppy, but again, I haven't even been deadlifting this block much at all. So kind of didn't really trust my grip, but it held on. So I'm going to be using straps more, because I found that especially in training that ends up being a little bit of a liability, but in competitions I'm much stronger. I don't have grip issues at all. Like I was able to pull as much as I wanted. The 383 at the meet, just couldn't quite lock it out, but it was not a grip issue. So here's 380 with as best I could, I guess, in the moment, with a pause deadlift. So this was a 10 kilo PR, because I've done 370. So 380 for a paused deadlift, which is, no matter what, 380 was a PR, paused or not, and difficult for sure. But like I said, I mean, this rep is something that I'm really encouraged about, because with very little actual deadlift training, it ended up being a really successful rep. So it was all singles this block. I didn't really have any rep work, which I'm going to go back to next block. I just felt like, especially without being able to do this whole block the way that I wanted to, I feel like my technique needs to stay sharp, and a bit lighter reps, I think, will be something that goes a long way anyway. So the belt squats here, this was a new addition. I added belt squats onto my deadlift day, and these were light as something like 5x5 at a 5 or 6 RPE. But I think the belt squats have been one of the major additions to my squat success. Was just a little bit more leg training, really low impact. And here I'm supersetting the belt squats and my feet up bench, kind of a secondary bench day. But I really wanted to make sure I point that out, because as you can see here, I'm wearing my belt squat belt around my waist. It's not a breathe belt or breath belt or whatever it is. So don't go accusing me of being one of those people, please. So there probably isn't a ton to say on this bench press day that wasn't said on the previous day, but kind of the same ideas. I'm leaning into the intensity, the more specificity here on my competition bench press, and doing a lot more of the other volume other places, but even a really kind of a reduction in volume. I've removed some exercises. I not even like replacing volume. I just straight up removed stuff. And just did a little more frequent bench pressing and a little bit more specific bench pressing, but lower volume, and it paid off pretty well. So this day was the day I was expecting to hopefully have a little bit more. I was in my head, I wanted to try to chip my PR. The best I've bench pressed is 200, so I wanted to get 202, but even kind of around here warming up, I just didn't really feel quite all that snappy. But anyway, I was following the trend of the block and feeling like I could go for it a little bit. So I was benching well and tried to go after it a little bit. Anyway, so 185 last warm up, I think, is really when I really knew, like, I don't totally have it. I'm not going to have 205, but 195 should be okay. And then, like I said in the previous day, there was what I would say is a bit of an underperformance on the singles, but ended up really being overperforming on the rep work. So, 195 here, 2.5 more kilos probably would have done it as far as maxing out really my strength for the day, but that was a pretty clean lift. But 182.5 or 402 for a new PR. I've done 400, so this was a small chip on the PR, but I'll certainly take it. But this I did, triple here. I backed down after this for another triple at 180, and I did 2 triples at 180 last week. So for sure, my bench press at the moment is much better than it really has, and I think even the correlation between the rep work that I'm doing is great at the moment. My overall strength is so much higher than it really ever has been. So even though the singles didn't end up looking like they, I didn't hit PR singles there, it turned out to, I think just the strength is looking much, much better. And I included this one. I've been pushing my incline bench press a lot, and I did a set of 8 here with 275, 276 on an incline press, and pretty proud of that one. I've been a really bad incline presser, so I think this has contributed to my strength. And now this is for sure the highlight of the block. So, now that I've moved up to 105 in the weight class, I certainly feel like my squat and my bench press need a ways to go, and my squat has exceeded all expectations as far as where I think I need to be. So I've been squatting, above 300 pretty much every week in this block, which 300 used to be a big milestone lift for me, and now, especially like on this day, it felt like it for sure was just a warm up. And the way that I'm feeling about my squat right now is just so incredible that I feel like I may be able to be squatting 700 plus like regularly, throughout blocks, which is an amazing feeling that my squat has come as far as what it has, and that I genuinely feel like I'm one of the best squatters in the weight class, like, top 3 as far as squatters, where this was something that a long time ago when I was coming up as a 93, I thought that I would always be coming from behind. It would just be my deadlift that would carry the load and carry my total. But now to be, one of the best squatters in the weight class, or, best squatters anywhere, it's something that's really exciting. So ended up with a big paused PR single here, and deviated from the program a little bit. If you look at that, you'll see I was supposed to do a regular single first and then just match that for my back down pause. But the last couple weeks I just started going after the pause because I felt like that was getting some movement. So anyway, one thing to point out here with these warm-ups is, you see that I, even with the videos, spend more time doing really light rep work, and then as we get up into the mid-range, all of those are moving a little bit faster. Even just the footage is choppier. I'm not spending much time on those, and I think that's something that people should emphasize, is spend more time with the light reps, getting warm, feeling in good rhythm, and then when you get into the middle reps, just practice. It should just feel automatic. Just practice those things so that when you get up into these heavy loads, everything is still automatic. So nothing should look different. If you scroll back and watch those middle reps, they should all look exactly the same. And then technique wise, you come up here to 300 kilos and it all looks the same as 250 or whatever. So really effortless rep. I'm super, super pleased that that's the way I'm able to squat right now. And now to take 705, knowing that I was going to go above it, ended up being a really, it's cool now to be able to move this. I think it ended up being probably 8.5, 9 RP, and then clearly a 380 is a total max effort lift. But after these squats, I labeled this day as squat, bench, and deadlift, but I skipped everything after this. I did the single, I did my back down squats, but this was the end of the block, and wanted to call this a win. And like I said, I had some back issues throughout the block. I'm feeling healthy now, and it was just a high rep bench press day, and I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of value in both of those things. So there's even some comments to be made there, is that, at the end of blocks, whether things are going really well or really badly, we don't need to go absolutely as hard as we can on everything across the board. So this squat ended up great, and I actually ended up going much more conservative on my back down work. There's just no sense at the end of the block to push things, to put myself in a position that next block I'm going to have to be reactive because of stuff decisions at the end of this week, when I already had all the big wins. So anyway, 330 kilos here. This is a 10 kilo PR above. I just squatted 320 at nationals, so bit of a pause. Maybe could have paused it a little bit longer, but tried to pause it, and then really, really difficult, but huge win. So really happy with how this stuff turned out. So strongest I've ever been on all 3 lifts at the moment, and I'm really excited to see what the rest of the year brings. So as of right now, I'm planning on doing the Virginia Pro Invitational. I'm not ranked all that high, so depending on what happens, I could end up getting kicked out of that and not actually be able to do that meet, but otherwise it'll be that or the Arnold. So anyway, if you want to follow along with these programs, that stuff is available on my website for free. So you can click on the free program link and follow along with. You can do this block or do the next one, just keep on going. So we should have a few more months left of me giving out all my programs for free. So thanks a lot for watching. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.